Episode 41, Sketchy Drum Stories.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Life's Learning Curve. Glad to have you here. I'm Paul Hart, and this is episode number 41. We're in season 3. Now, Life's Learning Curve is a podcast all about how we became the best person that we can be, the best us. Our lifelong journey toward a better realization of ourselves. We work all the way through our lives on this. Through playing drums in my lifetime, I have literally learned a few things. Literally learned how to dodge an angry band director, assimilate into a bad blues band, and comfort an embarrassed lead singer after a stage disaster. All this and more. Let's get going.
Life's Learning Curve. I'm Paul Hart. Episode Sketchy Drum Stories. Stand by.
We are really excited about today's episode. Today on Life's Learning Curve, I want to share some experiences in my years of playing drums, almost half a century right now. Yes, drum stories. Stories of playing drums. So right up front, I want to tease you about this episode you're going to hear situations of possible drug addiction, an equipment disaster during a stage play, and an orchestra director that literally tried to kill me. Now, I've already laid out a lot of the facts about my drum playing and my career playing drums in another episode called Sometimes I Miss the Show. Go back and find that one. So, without repeating that episode, I want to add to that episode, and I'll just tell you, my journey with drums began by seeing my friend's drums kit at their house, and I was a young child at that time, probably 4 or 5, and I sat and I touched each drum carefully as there was an angry sheepdog I remember nearby that really didn't want me to be there. So from that experience as a young child, I wanted to get into drums and learn to play drums. I realized that training I needed would be on a drum kit, not just a snare drum or bells or maracas and things. I wanted a drum kit, a bass drum, a tom, a snare, cymbals. With no internet back then, I needed the help of the classified ads in the newspaper, the local newspaper. And I looked every day, because we got a daily newspaper back then, back in those days. So I'd go into the musical instruments section of the Daily Courier News, which is my local newspaper here in the Midwest. And sometimes I'd look in the Sunday Chicago Tribune. Well, anyway, I located a used 3-piece Ludwig drum kit. Ludwig meant quality. Ringo Starr played Ludwig drums. If he did that, I could do that. For sale in the local newspaper right in my hometown, somebody was selling a 3-piece drum set at a giveaway price. It was a legitimate drum set, not a cheaply made, unplayable drum kit, for $60. I would get a snare drum, I would get a bass drum, I would get a hi-hat, and a very small cymbal that was really probably the only junky thing on the drum kit. But I had all that. I finally had all that, and I was to pay $60 from my savings account. Taking money out of that account was like squeezing water out of a rock for me, because my money cautious Great Depression parents and grandparents ran me through a list of questions.
Is this something you'll use?
Is this something that has value to you, son?
Is this what you really want to do with your money, Paul?
Will it hold its value?
If you never use this, you will have wasted 60 of your hard-earned dollars.
After that was said, I almost didn't buy this drum set. Apparently, a local mother was selling her son's Christmas present, the drums, that he never played and never touched. When I got there to look at the drums, I think I was about 12. They were legit. They were beautiful. They were this beautiful black sparkle Ludwig pearl. Ooh, it was really pretty. And I played instantly. When I got them back home, my feet were doing different things than my arms and my other hands and things like that. When I mastered a few basic drum beats, I felt invincible. I felt like I could go out, hit the road, play with bands. Not yet. I had met my good friend in music, Fred Larson, by that time, and we had made it a point to always play together, whether it was just the two of us in a group or we were with a bunch of other people. We liked to play with music with one another. Fred, again, played lots of instruments, guitar, bass, piano, all self-taught. The first band that we were in came on a day when Fred and I were meticulously double-tracking multiple instruments at Fred's house in a local town. After a phone call came at Fred's house, Fred returned from his dining room area sounding much like a call that had just come in for a superhero. Fred told me,
It's Jan Kosis. She wants to form a blues band. She needs us.
I was 14. And I had this drum kit, and I was ready to go. I wanted to play with a band. It was summer. School had just gotten out, and this band was happening. We all got together and practiced. We practiced a few times, probably 3 times, I think, in total, before realizing that the girl who had taken a lot of piano lessons, she could really read sheet music really well and played very nicely that way, but she struggled with rhythms and she struggled with chords and just playing with a bunch of other people. I've seen that since then as well. Jan, who later went on to become a really great band instructor, played guitar with expertise, and she was a great talent herself. Jan was funny and she was smart. And the interesting thing about Jan was she had this vocal cadence of this actor-comedian named Paul Lynde from TV's Hollywood Squares game show. Now, if you don't know anything about Paul Lynde from the Hollywood Squares, look it up on YouTube. It's quite funny. His delivery was really... it's the way he said it that made it funny. Anyway, we had a good-looking frontman who was a girl named Debbie, who sang with this nasal-like difficulty, never quite finding the right notes, but she looked good up front. And I recall Jan wanting me to sing a song called A Horse With No Name by America. And Debbie, who was the front man girl, front person maybe I should say, she struggled hitting the notes on Neil Young's song Southern Man. I remember Fred saying,
Come on, it's Neil Young. You don't have to hit all the notes perfectly.
She didn't have to be spot on those notes.
So after several stabs at the blues band, Jan called it off. She realized that the diversity and the range of talent just didn't gel. Fred and I continued to write and record songs on our own. The next year, our junior high school, now called middle school, had a play, like a musical play. For back then it was a hip, contemporary musical for its time called Big Rock and Candy's Mountain. Perfect for that time frame. There was a scene from that play where 2 of the characters would sing a couple of songs with a live band. The band would be me drumming, and a boy named Paul playing guitar. Same as my name, but we have Paul and Paul. And I tried to get Fred in there playing bass as well, but that was not understood very well by the director of the play. You need another guitarist? No, it's a bass. It plays the low notes. What? Anyway, it wasn't understood. And Fred actually wanted no part of the musical. So I was asked to be in the live band by a blonde girl, my age, named Rachel Harris.
You want to be in the house band?
She had a great voice, and she seemed very worldly to me, even though we were the same age. In other words, out of my league probably for that time frame. The musical had canned, pre-recorded music for all the songs, and all the kids sang along to the music except for the scene that we played live. Now this scene was really uber cool for me because it was the first time I would be able to play a live performance in front of my peers, their parents, my teachers, my coaches, a lot of different people. There was some pressure, but I didn't feel too much. I played with a band before, like concert band, where you're one of a bunch of drummers, but this is me keeping the beat. I was pretty young. The songs were Proud Mary and Stagger Lee. Really fun songs to play. They're classics. We rehearsed way too much prior to this play, according to my father, and we would rehearse down at Rachel's house. My dad would drive me down there because I didn't have my license yet, too young, and he would help load and unload the drums. Really nice of him, because if you've ever loaded and unloaded drums, there's a lot going on. He was actually really good about it. Our little band became more and more comfortable with each other, as will happen in bands. If you play together for a while, you start looking at one another for cues. Even the star, Rachel Harris from the play, talked to Paul and me. Whew, we felt honored. As musicians, we felt great about that. Rachel's voice had this kind of rockish, perfect pitch, gravelly sound. Not Janis Joplin-like, but she had a little gravel in there, and she hit the right notes. She was good, and we were ready.
Come on, boys.
Show night.
When the night of the musical came, we nervously waited in the wings, just Paul and me. We weren't in any other part of the play. We were just going to come on and play our instruments for real. I remember the spotlights swinging around to the band set as we entered the stage. We quickly settled to our instruments, and we began the song, playing the opening vamp to Proud Mary. Rachel was doing the Ike and Tina Turner version of Proud Mary, not the Creedence version, where she talks a bit before she begins singing the song. So the guitar is going, it's vamping, it's just waiting for her to begin singing, so it's going and drums are going. Alright, so you got it. And Rachel was supposed to say something to the effect of,
Every now and then, I think you might like to hear something from us nice and easy. There's just one thing, you see, we never do anything nice and easy. We always do it nice and rough. And we're gonna take the beginning of the song, and we're gonna do it easy. But then we're gonna do the finish rough. That's the way we do things. Proud Mary.
That's pretty tough coming from 13 or 14-year-olds. Anyway, she was supposed to say something like that. So Rachel fronted our little rock band, and she began, as we were on stage, as we were playing the vamp, she stood out in front of the guitar and drums, and she pulled the mic cord, a dramatic yank, like, performers might do. And as she did that, the XLR, the connection of the XLR mic connected, it got caught in one of the lugs, which is one of the parts of the bass drum that keeps the heads on. And it was caught in there, and she pulled on it, and I saw it, and I felt my bass drum yank forward just a little bit. This caused the microphone to short out. And as the microphone cut in and cut out, it was just cutting in and out, Rachel kept repeating the opening words to Proud Mary over and over, hoping the connection would become a nice solid signal again. Nope. Rachel performed. It sounded something probably like this.
Now and then, every now and then.
Totally embarrassed and ashamed, Rachel dramatically threw the mic to the floor, which she shouldn't do, and she ran off the stage crying before hitting the wings. Paul and I stopped playing the vamp, just kind of did a finished crash, and slunk off the stage into the side curtain. We didn't know what to do as the house lights went dim. But that's the thing about plays. if you're in the audience, people there in the audience never knew if that was real or not. Was that part of the play? Was it not part of the play? Nobody knew. Most people thought it was supposed to happen. And so what they had just seen was finally some real dramatic acting, emotional acting. They clapped. They thought she was very good. Rachel was very good in her performance, her acting. After all, it was real emotion. Sure. A backstage director instructed me, since I had nothing else to do at that point. She said,
Go find Rachel. Her next scene is very soon. We need her. Now.
I searched all over in the hallway, down every hallway on the second floor. Couldn't find her. As I went to go downstairs to the lower level, she was in the stairwell weeping uncontrollably. Life had not prepared me for this yet, and as I entered the stairwell and came to the same step as Rachel, she was frustrated and angry, and without even knowing, she attacked me this really misdirected, flailing anger as she swung her arms around, and I don't know, she wasn't trying to fight me or anything, but she just was frustrated. So I dutifully returned her to the stage just by saying, come on, we have to go back. Come on, we have to go back. You've got a scene. I'm not doing this. You've got a scene. You've got to go on. That's all I knew to say. So Rachel finished her scenes of the play that night, but she had mascara running down her face. So she had all this black coming down her face. And again, the audience doesn't know. They think that might be a part of the show. Maybe this character is supposed to spin out mid-show or whatever. She did all of her lines. At the curtain call, I watched as Rachel took her bow, and the audience just erupted into the gigantic applause, and she smiled. Now, to this day, I am not sure if the audience ever knew her dramatic outburst was good acting or and full of purpose or a Mike Cord mistake. Well, I knew. Here's another drum story. I was about 15 and I had outgrown my original 3-piece drum kit. And I had a buyer that would pay me what I paid for the drum kit, so that was good. I took that money and I found a drum kit for sale in a local easterly suburb, pretty close to our house, that had everything I wanted in a drum set. It had a bass drum, it had a snare drum, it had 2 mounted toms, it had 2 floor toms, nice! A crash cymbal, a ride cymbal, it had a cowbell. Now, new, this drum kit would cost around $1,400. It was used, but I didn't know how used. I hadn't seen it yet. From the description, it looked to be possibly a pretty good thing. Knew this drum kit would cost around $1,400. That's without cymbals and other accessories. He was asking $800. That was the price of the newspaper. Yeah. So I had to see this drum set. Still wasn't driving yet because I was like 15, I believe, or 14. My mom was a 5th grade teacher, and she was one of the nice teachers. She was non-aggressive and yet savvy enough to get the most out of her students. And she was smart about how kindness and psychology worked hand in hand for the common good of all in her classroom and everywhere else. So I bring this up because one day after school, my dad was on his second job. He was a principal and he did administrative work and he refereed and that type of thing for money, extra money, and to stay in shape. I asked my mom if she could take me out to look at this drum set. It was just one town away. Now, I was just too young to drive yet, as I said, and I was also too young, at least I felt I was, to do this type of business with an adult without her help. And boy did she help. Stand by for that. So she told me that after she finished grading her math papers, if there was time, we could go out and take a look at this drum set. So, without pestering her, I kept peeking around the corner to see how she was doing with the papers. Around 6 p.m., she completed grading her class's final math papers, and she told me to make the call from the classified ad. And I did.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Paul, and I'm interested in the drum set you have for sale in the newspaper.
Yeah, man. Can you come today? Now? Because my roommate's not here.
Let me ask. Mom, can we go now? I asked my mom.
Ask his name.
My mom instructed me. What's your name?
I'm Donald. My friends call me Badger. Come now.
It was a dial tone. We'd better go now, Mom, I told her. My mom wondered.
That's a negotiating price, Paul. You start at $700, and then you can negotiate your fair price in the middle.
I get it, Mom. I agreed with her. Using the directions he had given us, we drove about 20 minutes on a school night, I think it was a Monday, in January, to see these drums at Badger's house, which turned out to be an apartment. When my mom and I knocked on the door, I noticed how run down the hallway was. It was dirty. It hadn't been vacuumed for a long time. I saw lots of dead bugs, and there was no flickering light, but it might as well have had a flickering light.
What do you want?
I looked at my mom, and I hadn't really heard anyone being aggressive without reason like this before, maybe on TV. She looked back at me as if to say, "We're here for you, Paul. You respond to him." And I said, "Hey, Badger, I just called you about the drums from the ad." The door unlocked, and before my mom and me stood a tall, very thin man with hair down to his waist. I'd say probably mid to late 20s. He had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and he was around, 6'2", something like that. Very thin, but he looked older for some reason. It looked like life possibly had been treating him very hard. I noticed that he was wearing a white t-shirt, and he had stains everywhere on this shirt. And his face was flushed bright red, and his arms were veiny and very thin. So, out of my element, we cautiously walked in. I saw just one chair and one lamp in this entire apartment. The rest seemed empty. My mom said,
Ooh, I really like your cute beanbag chair. Looks comfortable.
That was my mom. This made Badger walk away and circle back, and he began to pace, and he began to shake for some reason, just mild shakiness. But in that vacant apartment sat the most beautiful drum set I had ever seen. It was as if it just didn't fit there. I checked out the drum set. It was beautiful, and it was new. I looked at the date stamped on the hoops. It was new about 4 months ago. And there were cases for these drums as well. During that time, my mom was incessant about how cute, the word she used, how cute Badger's apartment was. And I'm thinking, there's a lamp and a beanbag chair and some nice drums. I guess for a drummer that'd be cute. At first, I was embarrassed by her in that comment, and then I realized her legitimacy as a mom. She was making him nervous just by being a mom. Something seemed not quite right, so Badger began to pace the room. The drum hoops were dated, as I said, and they were new, as I said. Nice. No scrapes, no dents, no dings. They'd been played a little bit on the heads, and the cymbals were all pristine. Nice. The hardware, the pedals were light and tight and crisp. So as I sat behind the drums, I met my mom's eyes, and she raised her eyebrows as if to ask, "Is the kid okay?" It was a facial communication. I just looked at her and I nodded with my eyebrows up for a second without being seen. This was a very high-end and very good solid drum kit. It was obviously the best thing in that apartment. Badger began shaking as he spoke, and I was kind of intimidated by this odd behavior. He lit up a cigarette, and at that point, I relied on my mom's life experience. I was way out of my inexperienced league, and Badger said,
I gotta have the money tonight.
I was just about to say, what do you think of $700 for these drums? But before I got that out, Badger loudly stated,
1,000. I want 1,000.
You said $800 in your ad.
Well, I changed my mind. $1,000. I want $1,000.
My mom entered in the conversation and said,
Okay,
and she laughed and said,
we can get you $750 tonight, right now, if we settle on $750.
$1,000.
Badger yelled again.
Man, I don't know. Man, your mom's freaking me out.
With each word, I saw Badger quiver and shake even more. He stammered and his long hair jerked almost convulsively. My mom said,
Well, I have to say, you have a lovely apartment. It's cute as can be, Badger. We could do $750. If not, we have to go see other drums tonight. So, let's get going, Paul. I've got more to do.
$1,000.
Badger yelled as we walked to our car. Disappointed, I got into the car, and the ride home was a long, cold one. I knew that my mom had just ruined my chances out of getting the choice drum kit. She looked at me in the car as she drove, and she said,
Well, Paul, if I know people, I'll bet you that by the time we get home, he'll be calling us and accepting our deal. He needs that money for something, Paul. Probably for rent, I guess. I don't know.
But inexperienced in negotiating, I did not respect my mom's life lesson at that time. She was wrong, I thought. She ruined my deal for those choice drums. However, thankfully, I said nothing and I kept my frustration to myself. So as we walked into the door back home, the phone rang within 2 minutes. My mom nodded for me to answer it, and I did. Hello?
Okay, man.
You could have the drums for $750. I gotta have the money tonight, though.
I put the phone next to my shirt to hide our conversation. Flat on $750. No extras, $750, right?
Yeah, but you're killing me, man.
Mom, it's Badger. He'll do $750. You were right,
Get your coat.
my mom said. She smiled at me. The ride back went by quickly. I had $300 already in my hand, and the rest my mom would write a check for if he accepted that. I would pay her back from my bank account. Buying the drums went quickly, and he shakily wrote a handheld receipt on the same paper receipt that showed he had purchased these drums. I was kind of relieved about that. Well, at least I knew they weren't stolen from somewhere. I thanked Badger, but he couldn't say anything more than just,
Man, just go. Just go. Oh, man.
we paid Badger, and I packed up the drum kit. Now, I have to tell you, I still have these drums today. They were good. They were well made. Good equipment as well. Good equipment. Around 10 years later, after my mom had gone out and purchased these drums and helped me out, I was about 24 or 25. My mom and I were just sitting and talking about that drum buy from that guy named Badger and how odd that entire experience had been. But now as an adult, I asked her how she knew he would sell. And she just laughed and said,
Well, I gave him an extra $50. That's one thing that I did never tell you.
she said,
He looked like he could use an extra $50.
so in the end, Badger did get $800, what he asked for the drums. It was the advertised price, and I learned that sometimes my mom could be really a savvy businesswoman. Didn't know that about my mom, but she was. She was a humanist as well as a fine judge of human character. She complimented everything in his apartment, and she treated him in the way we all would like to be treated. And she brought that whole mom feel to him as well. So, was it possible that Badger was selling the drums to me for drug money? I'll never know. But I guess I shouldn't ever assume things like that. Final story. When I was a junior in high school, it was orchestra class. This is a band in school, orchestra in school, orchestra rehearsal, large group of people with the director. Okay, so this was high school orchestra. I'm a junior. And our conductor was Mr. Denton that year. And we were sight reading a new song for a concert that we would do many months down the road. And a director sometimes will throw cues at people. When you're sight reading, you're really watching that music and you're trying to watch the conductor too. But all right, so I'm playing cymbals, crash cymbals on this particular day. And we get to a certain part of the song, and the director takes his hand and grandly throws it out to me, and for a cymbal crash. I missed it. Plain just missed it. Counting, wasn't paying attention to the right person, the right place, the right time. I was probably reading the music. You missed it! So the director, horrifically angry, red-faced, he came off the podium and came crashing through the violins and into the flute players. And I remember seeing people flying left and right, like a scene in Jurassic Park, sending these high school kids flying out of their chairs. And if it wasn't for the baritones, which are large brass instruments, it stopped him. It stopped his progress as, he screamed at me, "Idiot!" It was my fault. And I felt bad. So in front of everybody, I apologized. I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Denton. I'll get it next time." But he was still angry, possibly having a bad day of some kind. And his response was, "I'll kill you!" Pretty extreme for orchestra, but not my best day in high school. But a memory I'll never forget. Always watch the director in orchestra and band. So what do we take away from this? Well, I learned that my mother was a tremendous negotiator, and that's an important life skill. She helped me a lot in that drum sale, and it was because she knew about people. She'd lived through some things like this and had a good idea about what to do and what might be right, what might not be right as well. Now, my son, a generation later, he's 25, and he's a great negotiator as well. He learned from the people that he worked with in audio when he worked at a specific sound company, his value. He knows his value. And people seem to respect that. He's lucky to have learned his own value at such an early age at 25. Didn't happen that way for me. As for the Jankosis Blues Band way back in junior high school, now called middle school, we learned at an early age that not every band works just because everyone loves music. And as for the girl singer in the play, Big Rockin' Candy's Mountain, Rachel, remember her? She learned that dramatic and thoughtless pulls at the mic cord, even though it maybe looks cool, it can sideline your performance when your XLR connections fall apart. I learned what life experience teaches you even in the strangest situations, because my mom played that drum sale with kindness, compliments, with savvy, life skills, and a firm commitment. Playing music is a natural fit for me, and it always has been. Buying, selling, and negotiating, not as much. there's always so much more to learn. Always is. That's the way it goes. For Life's Learning Curve, I'm Paul Hart.
Subscribe to Life's Learning Curve at lifeslearningcurve.org and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Podchaser. Life's Learning Curve podcast is put together by producer Paul Hart with assistance by Tom Ketchum, Jack McIntyre, and Sebastian T. Dog. We're mixed by Bob Horner, technical director Heidi Cerner. As always, music and audio assistance by Riley Hart. Please visit our website and subscribe. lifeslearningcurve.org. In today's show, some of the voices were digitally enhanced for entertainment purposes only. As always, find our podcast almost all places podcasts are heard these days. I am Paul Hart, and we will be back soon with more stories from Life's Learning Curve.